So here's an overview of lesson 3.2.2, which is about multiplication as repeated subtraction. So let's just kind of refresh our memories about just what multiplication means. So 2 times 3, and once again, we know at this age level that when you don't see an operation like add, subtract, multiply, divide between the number and the parenthesis, that means 2 times 3. And what this means is we have two groups of 3. Okay, so two groups of 3. So here's a group of 3. Here's a group of 3. I have 2 of them, and I have a total of 6. Okay, so just a review of what multiplication means. Now, we're going to just kind of put that up there just so we can kind of look at some of the things when we're starting to get into integers. So one thing is you might see, so the first piece of this lesson was talking about how can we write things in a shorter way. So obviously if we simplify it, we're evaluating, but it's not necessarily writing the expression in a shorter way. So I see that I have 2 -1, so it's kind of like this concept of I have two groups of -1. So I have -3 and I have a takeaway -1 and I have a takeaway -1. So that there means I have two groups. I'm taking away two groups of -1. Okay, so that's this part here is the same, taking away two groups of -1. So see if you can kind of, once again, it's good to pause and see if you can kind of do the next problem before I show it. So I've got 4, and I'm taking away -2, taking away a -2. So I'm taking away one -2, I'm taking away a second -2, I'm taking away a third -2. So what am I doing in terms of writing it in a shorter way? I'm taking 3 groups, so removing 3 groups of -2. Okay, so that's what that means. So just a good way to kind of understand. So this part here is the same part right there in a shorter way. So now let's kind of go to the part that's really, really weird. So just kind of a quick refresher. Two groups of 3. Now we're going to look at what happens when we have negatives in there. So many of you have heard this like, oh, a negative times a negative is a positive, but it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. So we're going to kind of go into the why that is. Now, if I'm going to take away, so what does this mean? I'm going to remove two groups of -3. But I don't have anything here yet, so how can I take away anything? So if I have nothing, remember that nothing is 0, and I have this concept of a 0 pair, so a plus and a minus. So I'm going to add a whole bunch of 0 pairs, and I'm going to use that first. So I know that 2 times 3 is 6, so I'm going to add 6 0 pairs. So there's a 0 pair, a 0 pair, a 0 pair, so there's 3 0 pairs, 4, 5, 6 0 pairs. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take away two groups, and each group is -3. So here's a group of -3, and I'm going to remove that. Here's a group of -3, so I'm going to remove that. So I have, basically, I'm going to just cross those out. So I've removed two groups of -3, and what I'm left with is 3, 6 positives. Okay, so that negative times a negative, this is why it's equal to 6 positives. Same thing, why is a negative divided by it, and this could have been a negative times a negative, or it could be a negative divided by a negative is going to give you a positive, but that same kind of understanding there. So why is a negative divided by a positive a negative? So let's think about what this means. This means -4, okay, so -4 divided by 2, broken into two groups. So if I take my negative 2 and I divide it into two groups, each group, okay, each group is 2 negative. So just kind of, once again, a quick little intro into multiplication with negative numbers. Okay, good luck.